Welcome back to part 2 of our podcast, 217 South Mills. If you have not yet listened to our podcast last week, make sure you go ahead and do that. Otherwise, this podcast won't make a whole lot of sense.
Welcome to episode 2 of 217 South Mills.
So for all you out there watching us on YouTube, apologies for the last video cut off. It's been kind of a long journey for me and Bill trying to figure out how to do IT and AV stuff. I'm sorry, and we're not very good at it, but we're trying. So we're definitely learning. There's been a lot of time, a lot of hours spent on Google and trying to watch videos on how to do this, because this is not our wheelhouse or even close. And when this was probably one of the biggest hurdles we had doing this, was just trying to figure out. It seems easy, like when you see people do it so seamlessly, but it's not easy at all. There's been a lot of trial and error. So again, our apologies.
What's the deal called at the library that you pull that drawer out and you look at the index card? We're in the libraries.
Yeah, that would be the Dewey Decimal System.
I almost wanted to go in the Dewey Decimal System and look up how to do a podcast from start to finish, where it details every single thing. Yeah. You can't find it on YouTube. We can't find it on Google. We do have one guy, I got to figure out his name because I'll even try and put him in the show notes, that gave us a ton of info on the mixer and stuff like that. So we're appreciative to those contributors out there. But yeah, it's been a learning process. We're excited to do it. It's something that's keeping us busy. We're having fun doing it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a little bit of yelling from time to time and a little bit of we're taking a break for the rest of the day. But we're still here. So we got to figure it out. But the battery system is a question. So any of you listeners out there, you contributors, or you other podcasters out there, do you use a dummy battery? What kind do you use? We basically have the 3 battery system, and we're trying to do a battery per episode because we've tested it, and the battery should last up to an hour. So we feel if our episodes are less than an hour, we should be good. But here we are, episode 2. We're excited to be back. What we're going to be talking about in this episode is our individual recruitments, how we got to UW, how both of us met, what our vision for the show is going to be, because I think year 1 is going to be a lot different than the future years when, like we have millions of followers. We're going to be talking about different things down the road. And then lastly, I'm sure the question's out there. We got the merch on. We got the hats on. Joe's working the gear. 217 South Mills. We're going to tell you what that's all about. I'm sure some of you already know. Some of you listeners have probably been there, have probably experienced some fun times with us. But let's start off with recruitments. I'll start with mine. So as I said in the last episode, born and raised Scranton, Pennsylvania. When it comes to Division I football, I realized right off the bat, whether offensive line or defensive line, I was an undersized guy. I think my heart and will is like 6'6", 6'7", but legit, I'm probably like around that 6'3", 6'4" mark. Wouldn't you agree?
Do we dare say you were the Rudy of Scranton, Pennsylvania?
I'd maybe argue that, but we do have, we'll get into this in later episodes, we do have Matt McGloin, who I played baseball with his older brother, that quarterbacked at Penn State, and he sort of turned into the Rudy. He actually has one of my favorite hoagie shops. Hoagie, for you people in the Midwest, it's a sandwich, a sub, what we call it hoagies. Italian-American, it's a hoagie. On the side of Catalano's Deli, he's got a mural, this kid.
Okay.
QB'd at Penn State. QB'd like a year and a half at Penn State. I mean, love the kid.
Nice.
I'm thrilled with my hometown. He didn't win no Rose Bowl, though.
Huh? True.
He ain't even Italian. He's Irish.
Ooh.
What are you doing putting an Irish kid on the side of an Italian guy? But I do love him. I love his family. I can't say enough positive things about him, but I don't think I'm getting that movie made. So recruitment-wise, I knew I was undersized. I was actually going to local high schools where colleges, the local D2, D3 colleges are coming in and doing it like a recruiting fair, like walking around, shaking hands, because I had no clue. Am I going D3? Is this going to be my coach next year? Because you're getting the letters, and we all know, we tell people. And one quick thing I'm going to add in, and this is going to happen occasionally, but that we're early on in these episodes, is we're going to try our best to keep it as clean as possible. We don't want this to be a rude podcast. We're going to try to use the best language as possible. But at the same time, too, we want to tell the stories the way they are. So we're going to try our best not to use inappropriate words or curse words, but they may come out from time to time. It's not an insult. It's not trying to be mean or derogatory. It's just what we went through and the way we remember it.
Right.
So back to my recruitment. So it was as small as Division II, Division III schools. And then I started building a little bit of momentum. My dad helped me make a tremendous high highlight tape on VHS. We had to get 2 VHS players, which was, almost as complicated as trying to figure this system out. Trying to figure that out where you're watching a whole game tape being like, all right, at 7 minutes, 32 seconds, that was a good tackle, grade it, and then you got to go back, record them all. But University of Buffalo came in the mix. And it was Frank Reich, who I think he was with the Bills, had the biggest comeback in NFL history. Was his brother, who was the D coordinator for for University of Buffalo, was coming to my house, we were breaking little rules back then, but they seemed huge to me, giving me like sweatshirts and giving my parents and my sister coats and stuff. We were all decked out in University of Buffalo. And I'm like, this is awesome. I'm going to the University of Buffalo. And his sales pitch to me was, everybody recruited me as a D lineman and basically said, you're going to come here and by your junior year, you're going to be an All-American. And also what would have been my senior year, my 4th year, assuming I wasn't going to redshirt, they were going to go Division I. They were 1AA. They were going to go Division I by my senior year. So that excited me. That, okay, it's going to take me 3 years, but by my last year, I'm going to have an opportunity to play Division I teams. Fast forward after that, we're sending tapes out to anywhere I'd consider. And right after, I mentioned last week, Penn State was the school I wanted to go to. Said I wasn't big enough or tough enough. That pissed me off beyond belief. And I narrowed my field down to, I said to my dad, I want to play in the Big Ten. I want to play a school that's going to play Penn State. Now, like I said last time, it was that vendetta, that just trying to get back at them to prove they made a wrong decision. And Wisconsin was the best school to do it. They beat Penn State our senior year of high school. Coaching staff was awesome. They give us, I had Coach Mason, ironically, wide receivers coach, was the coach that came to Scranton. All we talked about on my visit was all the hills in Scranton. So he parked his rental car on a hill next to my high school, and he was scared that the brake was going to hold the car. And I'm just like, is this really a good sign? Like, we're not talking football. Right. We're not talking my highlight tape. He's not all he's talking about are the hills in Scranton. So I wasn't really sure. I was like, good conversation. At least I got a story. I had a Division I coach recruit me. But a couple days later, get the offer, come out for a visit. My mom and I decided we're going to go out. My mom and myself together. My dad was working. They put us on a prop plane from Scranton. Now, Scranton, Pennsylvania, Scranton has an international airport. It's called the VOCA, Scranton Wilkes-Barre International Airport. We fly 1 flight a week to Canada, but we are international. We're on the big stage. But we fly a prop plane from Scranton to Chicago. And my mom and myself were the only 2 people out of about 30 people that did not throw up on the plane. It was such bad weather, like a roller coaster. I look at my mom. I'm like, you don't look good. You look green. My mom's like, you look the same. So we're on our layover. And I basically said to my mom, if they give us another prop plane, we're going to rent a car and drive home. Like, this was a fun experience, but we're not risking our lives to go do this. Thank God we got a jet. We get out there. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I'm all excited. I'm going, this is my first Division I Big Ten school that I'm doing an official visit to. And Coach Huber picks us up at the airport. And I'll never forget Coach Huber's words. We get in the car and he's like, you ready? Like, here's the way the weekend's going to go. We're going to dinner tonight. You're going to go to Coach Alvarez's house tomorrow afternoon, meet with Coach Alvarez. I go, okay. He goes, do you know what you're going to say if he offers you a scholarship? I'm like, well, I'm not sure. Going to talk to my dad. Because I got an offer on the table from the University of Buffalo. Not that that's competing with Wisconsin, but I go, I'm going to talk to my dad. And Coach Huber stops at like a red light or a stop sign way longer than you should. Looks in the mirror. He's like, that's not the right answer. We're in the car going to campus right now. If he offers you, you're saying yes. I go, okay. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
You didn't mention all the University of Buffalo swag that you already had. Like, wait a minute, I still have I have free jackets and free hats.
I didn't say that to you, but I will bring up. I'll throw Coach Huber under the bus again. So part of my time on that visit, I was like, okay, you said I have to say yes if he offers me, so that's off the table. I'm saying yes. Now I'm just like, is he going to offer me? And Huber's like, I don't know. You got to wait till tomorrow. Wait till you talk to him. And they put me through the ringer for like 15 minutes before he offered. But I asked Coach Huber leading up to it, I said, hey, I'm a big baseball player too. Is it cool me playing 2 sports if I come here? And he's like, what 2 sports? I'm like, football and baseball. He goes, I don't have a problem with it. I go, awesome. I go, is there anybody else I have to ask, like, permission? Like, should I bring that up to Coach Alvarez? He goes, no, you're good. You could do both. I go, awesome, thank you. So the next day, meet with Coach Alvarez. We talk a little family, football, culture. Talk about my tape, the way I play, my attitude, what I have to learn to make it at that level. And he offers me, and I say yes. of course, like Hughes coached me up, and go home. And it wasn't until after I was home, I started telling people, I'm like, they're going to let me play football and baseball. I'm like, how much better can this get? Until I ran into a person who was a college baseball fan. And they're like, hey, just so you know, Wisconsin doesn't have baseball. I go, no shit. I go, that dude kept selling me. I could play both, but he made it a great visit. So to me, that was funny. And yeah, like I said, it was a great experience. It's one of those experiences you wish every high school player has the opportunity to have. But me and you both know you don't get those experiences unless you put in the time, the effort, the work, the sacrifice. Like that's what I think today everybody wants everything handed to them, or you at least see that a lot when you're watching social media or hearing people speak. But the amount of that's part of this podcast is talking about the behind the scenes, what we did, the work we put in, the blood, sweat, and tears to be able to get those opportunities in front of us. So yeah, I mean, that's a long story short, but that pretty much sums up how I got recruited and how I got here.
Yeah, I don't even think I've heard that story. Ever heard that?
Yeah, that baseball one. I laugh at it. I'm still like, oh, that dude lied right to my face.
But if we can have anybody out there that's good at computers and Photoshop, if we can Photoshop Bill into a Wisconsin baseball uniform,
it's got to be at third base. You know, back then my hips were good. I was able to get low, get both my hands on the ground. Joe, do you know what they called me when I was 13 years old? They called me Hoover. You know why? Because I sucked up every ball at third base, just right from the ground to the belly, and I was a cannon to first base.
You were much skinnier when you were a kid, right? Because now the ground to the belly, there's not much clearance there, right?
It's tougher to bend over. I mean, I got the hip, we got the ankles, we got the belly, the shoulder, the elbows don't extend all the way down.
But absolutely.
But back in 13, it was beauty. It was like art to watch me play third base.
Hopefully we have some VHS tapes somewhere of that because I'd be interested to see that.
I'll get the whole team up. Like I said, I'm going to be meeting up with a bunch of the guys. Some of them played baseball with me, and they'll stand up. I got Buck Sparacino. He'll be I want Buck Sparacino to comment when this video comes out how I played third base.
Okay.
We'll see what comments he puts out there.
All right.
And that's another thing. Before you talk about your recruitment, it just popped in my head. And I know you love to talk, so I didn't interrupt you. But for any listeners out there, whether you're on YouTube or listening to it on podcast, our email is plastered all over our social media sites. So if you got a question that you want on an upcoming show, it might already be an episode that we have that we're going to delve into. But if you got any questions, hit us up via email. That's the best for questions. You got any comments or things like that, feel free to leave them on social media. But questions for the show, hit us up, 217southmills@gmail.com. But let's get back to your recruitment. What was it like for you?
So mine was a little different. You know, I kind of was getting my name out there. I was a junior, and we had a very big offensive line in high school. And if I recall correctly, we were bigger than the Packers and the Badgers in high school. So we had quite a bit of attention. And they were actually, a lot of schools were recruiting the right tackle next to me. And I was right guard. And they, you know, obviously if they're there to see him, and I was working my butt off and playing as hard as I could, I got the attention. So that's kind of how that all started. But then I remember in between my junior and senior year, Coach Steffenhagen says, hey, and Coach Gray, the offensive line coach at DC Everest at the time, shout out to Coach Gray, still around. I know you are. We're friends on Facebook, so shout out to you also. He said, hey, if you want to get out there and showcase what what your skill set, you need to start going to some of these bigger football camps. And I'm like, okay, well, and again, growing up in a family of 6 kids, not a tremendous amount of, of money laying around. So we decided to go to, I signed up for the football camp at the University of Wisconsin, and I know my dad had to work quite a bit of overtime for us to be able to get to meet at that camp. So never at Madison, never went to Madison ever, never really left the Wausau area. Like growing up, we just didn't. It was just, that was where we lived.
The county was sort of like the border.
Absolutely.
You knew the county, but going outside there was a whole nother road trip.
We didn't do that. Our family vacation was camping 20 minutes from our house. Yeah. Like if you forgot something, you just ran home and got it. Like, I mean, that was the vacation. You know what I mean? And that's just, and I was perfectly content with that. That was the way we grew up, and didn't know anything else, anything different. So, going down to Madison to camp, and again, not ever been to some local camps that DC Everest hosted some camps, did some lineman camps, around the area, and did all the things, and that was fine. Went to this camp, and it kind of blew my mind. First of all, being on the field on turf. I mean, being a small town kid, being in Madison was unbelievable, because it's kind of a culture shock for me. You're from a bigger city, so for you it's probably no factor, but for me it was actually like, holy, this is big, much bigger and much more uncomfortable than I thought it was. It's that time of the show again, where we like to thank our sponsor, Cabin Coffee Altoona. Cabin Coffee Altoona is located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane, located just off Highway 53, the River Prairie exit. Stop by and try my favorite drink, the Ice Breve, with sugar-free caramel, sugar-free chocolate, and sugar-free vanilla. It's great tasting and fits into all your parameters for your keto diet. Just remember, folks, everything's better at the cabin. It's going to be, obviously, you get into the stadium and stuff like that. So, and that was really cool. Got to play, and so they break us up, and Coach Jim Huber was running the camp, because all the Wisconsin coaches were running the camp for the high school kids, and I'm going through my drills, and before you know it, I am in every rep against everybody else, and it was in between summer of my junior and senior year, and I was not in my playing or my fighting shape yet. I was working towards that. Then I went every rep, and I'm going like, this is ridiculous. Like, I spent a lot of money to be here. My dad spent a lot of money for me to be here, and I'm just getting the crap kicked out of me.
Now they're just abusing.
No, I'm just abusing I'm just getting abused, and and ultimately, I mean, just kept on going, and you know what? Went against guys that were I don't remember his name. Sorry, I don't remember who you are, but he came to school there too. He ended up going to Northwestern. But just kept on getting just drilled and over again. And I think it was probably the last day of camp, or second to the last day. And Coach Alvarez comes over. He's like, hey, you want to go for a walk? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go for a walk with Coach Alvarez. Heck yeah. So we walked up into the 50-yard line, and we sit down in the bleachers, and he's like, kind of just
cleats and pads on it.
Everything. Yeah.
So you're sweating.
I'm sweating like oh
god. You're taped up, pleated up. Okay.
Just
wanted to get that.
Just a sweaty mess. Yep. Just came off. He walked over in the drill. So let's go for a walk. I'm trying to control my breath so I can have a conversation, and not drip on the guy, So, and he's kind of sits down. I sit next to him, and he's kind of just this. The only way I can describe it, it was like sitting next to the Godfather. I mean, seriously, that was the impression I got. He was wearing these Italian loafer shoes, shorts,
no socks,
khaki shorts, no socks.
Coach Alvarez never wears socks.
Gotta have the polo on, and had the gold chain hanging out, and had the ring on, and the Rose Bowl ring. And I'm like, I mean, I can remember it like it was yesterday. And he smelled good. I'm not gonna lie to you. Absolutely. I mean, he smelled better than I did.
He's the dog. I'm surprised he didn't kiss the ring. No. See, if you were Italian, you would have known. You probably would have got down on a knee, kissed the ring, and then be like, what do you have?
No kissing of the ring. And we kind of just thought, and he says, hey, so what do you think, as he's kind of surveying what's going on, watching his coaches run position drills? And I said, it's pretty impressive, sir, because what else am I going to say? I mean, I was at a loss for words. And he's like, so I've been talking to Coach Hughes, and you're really putting out effort here. We really like what you've seen. You've been on our radar. And I said, okay, well, I appreciate that. And he's like, so if I offered you a full ride scholarship right now, a verbal commitment, what would you say? And I was so dumbfounded, I didn't even know what to say. Honestly, I was just in such shock. And I think I uttered something along the lines I always looked good in red, or something stupid like that. Not even funny, but I just didn't know what to say. And so with that, he said, okay, well, if you're going to verbally commit here, then nobody else is going to talk to you. You're not going to get all those letters that you've been getting in the mail. I'm putting my stamp on you, and that's it. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great. So I was on cloud 9, because this is obviously something I've been working for just to play at this level, to get to that level. It was such a huge, almost like you made it, the hard work has paid off, but still knowing that there's a lot more to go. But it was one of those hurdles you were able to get over. So that was pretty cool. before cell phones. That's how old I am. So we get done, and we're staying at the Regent across the street. And so I walk over there, and I don't think I showered. I don't remember. I probably didn't because I was so excited. So I make the collect call in the lobby, and I call my mom and my dad, and collect phone call from Joe Grabowski, and my mom answers the phone, or my dad answers or I forget how the transition went. I think my dad answered the phone. He's like, "Hello." I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?" He's like, "Good." He's like, "How's camp going?" I said, "Dad," I said, "they just offered me full ride scholarship or a verbal commitment for a full ride." He's like, "Really?" And my dad's tough. I mean, that I assume that's where I get it from. Just a tough guy, and kind of went silent on the phone there for a little bit there. So I don't know if he was having an emotional moment or what, or just didn't know what to say. One of those kind of things. And he's like, "Well, what'd you say?" I said, "Well, I agreed to it." Like, yeah. He's like, "Okay." Another long pause. If you know my father, it's just standard operating procedure. Why don't you talk to your mom? So he gives mom the phone. I talked to mom, and she's super excited. And I hung up the phone, and it was like that moment where you kind of. I remember hanging up the phone, hearing the click, and sitting back and being like, "Holy cow! Like this just happened." Like in one of those moments that are encapsulated in my mind and in time, like all of it, like the smell of the Regent in the lobby. I mean, all of it was just trapped in my skull.
You feel like you're on top of the world.
Absolutely, 100%.
You feel like, because we were athletes and we worked hard for what we wanted, we were still fans that whole time growing up. And it's like you became what you idolized as a kid.
Absolutely.
We always looked up to, like, God forbid if there was that moment, like even taking it back to like being in grade school or middle school, going to a high school game, and the team comes out the tunnel and you're like 5 feet away and you're like, holy cow, I want to be that guy someday. And getting that offer, it's like, we want you to be that guy.
It was unbelievable. And as a kid growing up, I loved Notre Dame. And I would watch Notre Dame on a black and white TV. And it was hard to tell when they were playing other teams that didn't have emblems on them. But I mean, so Notre Dame was like, and I was recruited by Notre Dame heavily. But there was just that moment in time was such like, it's the one you read about in books that don't happen to you. It's the movie scene that you see that doesn't happen to you. And it was just one of those life turning moments in your life that set your course for a whole different way than you were planning on going.
So my two takeaways from your story: one, I think I'm so grateful that you didn't tell your dad that you responded to Coach Alvarez. I told him I looked good in that because I think your dad would have killed you.
Yeah, probably.
That. And two, I feel like your mom, Mr. Grabowski, made cookies for the whole lower half of Marathon County after she got
probably.
The phone. You're like, we don't have to pick them up till tomorrow. I'm going to bake cookies for everybody as a celebration. I bet you everybody got W cookies.
And there's definitely a story behind my mom and cookies. Trust me. It's was a big part of the offensive lineman in the mid 90s to the 2000s. So So and then as far as the other recruiting part is when I did, finally they were still recruiting me, and they did the visit to my house. Again, we're kind of, I remember mom and dad bought a new couch and a new chair for that occasion.
For the visit.
Nice. So we sporting a new couch and a new chair. And Coach
Were you allowed to sit on it before the coaches came?
I think it was delivered the day before, so there wasn't a whole lot of downtime for that. And then Coach Alvarez and Coach Palermo came over to the house, and my mom fed him pot roast, and we had the entire huge family of mine, like all 8 of us, sitting around the table with Coach Alvarez and with Coach Palermo. So that was just a cool experience for my folks too. Just a really cool, kind of, I don't know, just you feel super duper important, I mean, the red carpets rolled out. It was just a really cool experience.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, that's sort of our recruitments. What we envision for the show. I'll start us off with my one thought, and you could fill in whatever I'm missing, is we feel like a lot in year one is a lot documenting the stories that we have. We got a bunch of episodes laid out there with different categories or subjects or titles for what we want to discuss, but we're going to also try and hit on things that are actually happening, whether it's combines or the draft or mini camps, off-season workouts, OTAs, preseason. we'll chime in from time to time on that. But basically, it's about documenting these stories.
Right.
After that spot is done, then we're going to get into a little bit more current events, talking more Badgers, recruiting, Packers, and also talking about our personal life. Like, obviously, I got into hunting more recently. Joe hunted more often as a kid, talking about our hunting experiences, preparing meats, parenting, having kids, just life, dieting. We've been trying on and off dieting for the last year and trying to see what works, what doesn't work. We're back at it right now. So if anybody wants to jump on board with us, we're trying to do a quasi carb-free, sugar-free diet, and but also getting back in the gym and working out a little. So just talking about all that stuff. And what would you say? That's
and at some point in time, we kind of want to have people on, like, because we're still in connection with other Badgers and with people and friends that are just pretty cool. And just a cool experience for us to still be friends with them and have people on here and get their perspectives too. I know Bill mentioned possibly going on the road here. Like, I mean, that's something we want to do, and just kind of encapsulate all of our experience. But like after the stories are done, we still want to be able to continue this and bring a quality product and at least be entertained ourselves, and entertain people out there.
And I'm glad you brought up the traveling. Like there are a ton of people that live in the Midwest, let alone all over the country where, like we do have the luxury where we have time from time to time to be able to travel. And whether it's going to Madison or Green Bay or Chicago or hopping on a flight going to Florida to see some former Badgers.
Absolutely.
Doing that. Also maybe going to a Badger game one of these years and doing the podcast at a game. Because another thing that fans don't realize is our experience with football takeaway tailgating. We never, like obviously we're playing, you don't get to tailgate, but I could, to this day, there's certain memories that you can't get out of your head. And one of them for me is the smell of brats and beer, taking the bus from the in-towner in Madison to Camp Randall. And what would you say? It's like 8 blocks. But on that bus ride, you just sort of knew, like around block 5, that smell is going to come on because that's where the RV tailgating starts. Then block 4 starts the cars. And that's just the distance of the stadium. And you could smell it through the bus windows. And that, like, it just gave me that feeling like it's football Saturday.
Absolutely.
Like, they're out there. They're getting ready. We're getting ready. We're about to go to war. And it was just like the buildup of excitement before we got to the stadium. So just trying to experience all that and give you guys, as the audience, the same experience that we went through, the knowledge of it, a little bit of a taste, and who knows? And on the same time, too, with Cabin Coffee Altoona being a sponsor, we're going to start doing a live show here roughly once a month. We're still working on the logistics on what day it's going to be. Is it going to be consistent every month? But we'd like to do a live show here where anybody in central Wisconsin, especially the Altoona, Eau Claire, Chippewa area, could come in here, grab a coffee, and watch us do it live. Maybe we even open it up to questions of the audience. Once it gets to a certain point.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool because I don't walk around my daily life talking about football of what I've done, and I think that's the thing. Like, I don't like have my chest banged out, and I'm not sporting my Rose Bowl ring everywhere and say, "Oh, I played for the Badgers." But this is just kind of a cool opportunity for us to tell stories, and for people who know me that don't know this. I mean, just kind of a cool experience to get some behind the scenes stuff that most people don't know about us, which is awesome.
And we grew up in that era where, if you ask me or you or any of our friends or any of our teammates, because we're all basically the same, we know the definition of a meathead. And we hated meatheads in college. A meathead, for those of you that don't know, a meathead is somebody that is always wearing their football gear, is always bragging about, I'm on the team, and we did this and we did that, where I really feel, and we're going to talk about Coach Alvarez just in the next couple episodes here, and about his leadership and about his rules. But a lot of that, I think, made us humble. Or I'll even take a step further and say we were humble, but didn't allow us to get carried away and to get cocky. And that's the way we played football. Like when that game was over, I mean, Joe and I are both identical, along with many of our teammates. When that game was over, we tried to be animals on the field. And I'll say I never tried to hurt somebody on the field, but I wanted to go as hard as possible to make them say, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I have to leave to bring my backup in. But then when that game was over with, I have no problem giving the guy a hug and being like, dude, you played an awesome game. Shake his hand, wish him good luck, tell him, I hope you play this hard against Michigan next week because I want you to beat them. We'd have that conversation afterwards. So humility was there for us. And like Joe said, this isn't about bragging. It's about, number one, sharing the story for our families and for our future family down the road. And then also for the fans, telling the behind the scenes stuff. But But yeah, we're both the same. I'm obviously a little bit more of a talker than Joe, but I think we're both similar where we don't go around and introduce ourselves and start talking football. But if you, especially with me, if you bring football up,
Right.
then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, they're interested. I'm going to start telling stories because I know they're going to enjoy it until they tell me to stop.
Absolutely.
Or until Joe grabs me and is like, no, it's time to go home.
Yes, absolutely.
So, yeah, so that's basically what we're doing here. Now, Joe, the big question, name of the show.
Why?
What's the name of the show? Why is it named that?
Why the name 217 South Mills? So we've been talking to people about like, why are we doing this? What's up with the name? Why are you wearing a 217 South Mills sweatshirt and a hat? So 217 South Mills is the house that we lived in and we were roommates in 1990. What year was that? 98, 99, somewhere in there. So, kind of a tribute to how we, just our friendship from back then in college. Met in 96, and we weren't roommates the entire time, but then finished out our career as roommates and been friends for since then. So, yes, 217 South Mills is an address in Madison, Wisconsin, and it's still there.
It's a real house. Please don't go abuse it, but don't show up and stand outside, take pictures, and ask them to talk. And who knows, that might even be another location that we do a podcast.
Absolutely.
Right outside the house. Maybe we even get invited to the house or have a cookout out back and do a podcast. But that house, not as you were speaking, I was listening and I go, you know what? That house is a lot like an offensive line. Nothing special about it, but it did the job. It did what it had to do. Didn't ask for a new coat of paint. Didn't ask to get shined up or to get bragged about. But it did its job. So we were grateful to be there. Had a lot of great memories. We're going to be telling you a lot of those fun stories, having people on the show that were at 217 South Mills, sharing their stories from the house, from the experiences in Madison. And we're glad you're out here. We're glad you're listening. We're glad you're watching. Stay tuned for the next episode.
And also, we have no idea if 217 is still a football house. It was for a few years after that. So anybody who lives at 217 South Mills in Madison, Wisconsin, if it's a football house, let us know.
Hit us up on an email, mate. We'll be down there sooner rather than later.
See you next time, folks. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Joe and I today. We hope you enjoyed your time with us. If you like what you heard, please give 217 South Mills a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Go tell your friends about us. Like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and YouTube.
I'd like to thank Cabin Coffee Altoona for sponsoring us. Everything is always better at the cabin. See you next time. And remember, folks, Red Ass the Run.